this session of On the Grid, How to Scale and Diversify. I know we still have some people rolling in, so I will do our quick Grid 110 spiel. Um, so yeah, we're a nonprofit focused on supporting early stage entrepreneurs in Los Angeles. We do this by running no cost, no equity accelerator programs and providing free resources to founders in the area and beyond. And we do this all with the goal of making the entrepreneurial journey more equitable, accessible, and inclusive. So in our almost 10 years of operations, we've supported over 300 companies, and our alumni have gone on to raise over $123 million in funding. And today we are super excited to have Lisa Kastner with us. She is the founder of Running Wild, which is a content creation, distribution, and licensing company. She's got a great session planned for you today on scaling and diversifying your business. So Lisa, I will pass it over to you.
Cool. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. Actually, it's kind of fun to see some familiar faces. So it's nice to know that so many entrepreneurs are like, just, keep on keeping on. So that to me is pretty awesome. So some background on me, I actually run a content creation, distribution, and licensing company. That's just fancy terms for saying that it's a publishing house that has 5 imprints. We publish 40 to 50 books, different titles per year. We've won several awards. And what we thought we'd do today is kind of go through scaling and diversifying your business, and like a variety of ways that you can actually do that, and use things that I've actually done and experienced as examples. I personally prefer these to be more interactive. So what I want to do before we really dive into everything is I'd love to hear from people on this. Like, what brought you here? Why did you decide, you know what, I want to hear about scaling and diversification. And you can either pop your question or your statement in the chat, or you can unmute as well. Either way is all good. Okay, cool. Looking to scale into new markets. And actually, that's a really interesting one to talk about. Let's see. Diversify offerings. Yep. Explore a different vertical. Okay, cool. That sounds interesting. All right. Okay. Well, then with that, first, what I'd like to do is let you know, I have notes. I'm going to be playing off of the notes that I have. I want to build $1 billion business. Me too. Dang, damn it. So before we really dive into it, I want to talk a little bit about what's the difference between scaling and diversification. You guys are all going to get my notes. And one cool thing about being able to share my notes is it has a little bit of a roadmap to it to kind of help you figure out how you can diversify and scale. So you can kind of use it as like your next steps from the session. Okay, so scaling. So scaling is actually expanding what already works. So you get more sales, bigger operations. So that's like right now, I mentioned, that we've had a lot of, we have 5 imprints. We actually started with 1 imprint. And then as we saw, as we've been expanding, and I'll talk about a few different ways that we've been doing that, our growth, last year, we actually doubled in sales compared to the previous year. And this year, we're already on target to minimally, our company's target was a 20% increase. I'd say we're actually on target for doing double growth as well. So, and again, we'll talk about how we've been doing that. And then diversification, adding new products, services, or markets. So, obviously, as I mentioned, we've gotten more imprints. but there's other ways to do that as well, which it's kind of I find that part the most interesting. Anyway, okay. Now, before you actually start scaling or diversifying, first think about financial readiness, market demand, and operational capacity. So it's like, okay, those are all fancy words we've all heard 1,000 times, but what does that really mean? So financial readiness, an example of that is making sure that you either have the financial backing or you have the resources available to you to support that growth. So we just launched 2 imprints, and part of the conversation that I had with the leaders of those imprints was, okay, how are you going to handle things like accepting new submissions? How are you going to handle the actual creation of a book, right? Who's they would by default have access to my distribution channels. We're with the 3rd largest distributor in North America. But like, how are you actually going to get it to the point where the distributor will have it in hand? How are you going to handle getting everything set up so that it can actually be made available through paperback? How are you going to handle getting it into like an audiobook format? And is that something that you're going to offer? So it was really a lot of sitting down with the heads of each imprint and saying, all right, so you've got this new path, you have this new funnel underneath Running Wild, but how are you actually going to make this happen? Now, in some cases, that might be, again, financially, it might be you need to get financial backing, you need to get a loan, right? Because, like, let's say it's a physical service that you're providing, or you have a retail store, what if you need to get an additional retail store in order for this to happen, right? How are you going to pay for that? But a lot of times, it's actually more so leveraging what you already have in place. So, like I already mentioned, like, are they going to bring on more people? Are they just going to increase the number of hours that they're bringing forward in order to get this stuff done? And do they have the knowledge to do these things? And if not, where are they going to get it? Right? Market demand. So market demand, so for me at least, what I find really interesting about market demand is I want you to take like 1,000 steps back when you're thinking about market demand. So like egotistically for me, to me, growth was I am going to like just start a new imprint. And does anyone not know what an imprint is? I just want to make sure that I'm not like confusing anybody. Okay. So it's like I want to start a new imprint, and it sounds really cool, right? It's called Junkyard Rooster. And the concept behind it is like we accept everything what no one else wants. So an imprint is like, thank you for asking, Juan. So an imprint, when you look at like the big houses, the big publishing houses, like a Penguin, right? An imprint, those are all the books, the publishers underneath that major publishing house. So like if you go on Penguin Group's site, you'll see like St. Martin Press, Penguin Press, like all these other, basically sub companies underneath the parent company. And those sub companies, they'll have their own mission and vision associated with the work. They'll have their own key performance indicators that they have to provide, all that kind of thing. So it's almost like for us, Running Wild is the parent company, and then each imprint basically represents a sub company underneath it. Does that make more sense? Okay, cool. So again, egotistically, market demand, it's like, you know what, this sounds so, Junkyard Rooster just sounds like really sexy. It should be a lot of fun. We came up with a great logo for it. But the reality is, do we actually know if there is any market demand for this product, right? Now, we're in a good place because we already have a solid placement within the market. And we already were able to identify different areas where we could find new customers, basically. But you know, it's really just making sure like that there are people who are interested. And then operational capacity, which I touched on a little bit. So making sure that, again, if you do expand, how are you going to fulfill that market, right? How are you going to make sure that, again, if you have a physical product, that it can actually, uh, you can actually ensure that the people who are placing these orders, they're going to get the product that they want. Okay, now I'm going to take a breath for a second. Did all that make sense, or did I just like babble?
No, that was fine. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, so strategies for scaling your business. So optimizing operations and systems. So honestly, I personally think this is just a great thing to do. I don't know about everyone else, but a lot of times I find both with my own company and when I've worked for corporations, you know, you're creating process and you're making things happen as the demand comes about, right? But then when you go back and you look at things retrospectively, you realize, wow, this is really, really inefficient. There's got to be a better way for me to do this. So for me, an example of this is like when I first started running Wild almost 10 years ago, uh, all of our contracts were like, I just took a Word document, I wrote the thing, I like sent it to the person, and they could either, you know, like do it online, like just type in their name or whatever, or and then at the end of the day, I basically create a PDF of it and send it out to them. Well, with us actually uh, putting out 40 to 50 titles per year, that's like a half hour to an hour's worth of work that I'm of my own per week that I'm using because I'm putting out minimally 100 contracts a year with because I have to do contracts for the authors as well as for the people who will be editing the work, right? So for me, I went back and I looked at, okay, how can I do this smarter? And I found out that there's an incredible online uh, uh, tool called HelloSign that you can actually have people sign documents electronically. It takes like 10 minutes. So, you know, I saved almost an hour's worth of work per week by switching to HelloSign. And I think it cost me $90 a year or something like that, right? So it's basically going back and looking at where can you either automate or make things simpler for you so that as you grow, you've got more time for you and to get your stuff done, and you're just doing stuff smarter. Hiring the right team for your growth. When we first started, so this can be both a direct hire. You know, again, I think everyone knows what a direct hire is, but it can also be, especially as you're growing, it's bringing on contractors. Now, from my day job, I actually am used to working a lot with people overseas, depending on the role. So what I'll do is I was able to take that kind of knowledge and experience in bringing on those resources. And honestly, like when I realized there was far too much work associated with getting our book, like the basic product to market, that I needed a product manager to really manage everything from the moment it's done with an editor and an author to actually getting it to our manufacturer and our distributor. Was able to go to Upwork and identify people that I could then bring on board, and I could train them on what needed to be done, and they do a fantastic job, right? I know for me, that was really scary because I was used to doing all that work, and I knew the ins and outs, and I knew exactly what needed to happen. So for me to hand it off to a third party who I hadn't necessarily worked with before, again, it was really scary, but it was also great because it allowed me as well to sit back and say, okay, what am I in this training? What's working? What's not? And actually, she was able to come back to me and say, hey, you know, here's some better ways to do things. So there's a lot of advantages in doing that. I already mentioned leveraging technology a little bit and digital marketing. I'm not sure, like using customer relationship management tools, e-commerce platforms. I think probably maybe an e-commerce platform is more common among us chickens on this call. I think probably customer relationship management tools. That's pretty big, right? I mean, you'd have to be selling minimally in the millions in order to justify that kind of expense. So. And then like funding growth. So right now, in all honesty, I'm just continuously reinvesting into my own company. But that's pretty common, right? Until you hit like that, whatever that magic number is for your specific industry. But I actually am currently in, and I don't know who here might be interested in this. The Los Angeles Urban League actually has a recurring small business growth I guess you like not a school, but like a grant where for 12 months you have a mentor, they give you tools across Intuit, which includes MailChimp, TurboTax, and a couple of other tools, but also experts in those areas that help you manage your books, figure out how you can do things better, smarter, and so on. I recommend going to LA. It's at laul.org, I believe. It's called the Intuit Ideas Program. Like I said, it's on a recurring basis. I think I'm part of the 4th cohort or something like that. Definitely go check it out. It is so well worth it. It's a great way for you to get a hold of a really experienced mentor because they really go out of their way to find people that it's like a solid match. So like my mentor has actually been she's a chief financial officer. So she was able to help me look at not only my books, but also like how I was reporting out to people who would get royalties from my organization so that it was simple enough for them to understand it, but effective enough that I could easily provide these reports on a regular basis. Bootstrapping versus external funding. So the reason I went off on that diatribe about LAUL is because another great part of this program is we have classes at least once a month. And oftentimes it's around sales and making sure that you've got everything solid so that you can actually then go and get funding. They also have you go in front of capital investors as well as banks, and it's mandatory that you have to pitch to them. So what's great about that is it gives you the experience around it if you don't already have it, but it also forces you to build your network so that when you are ready to get those investors, go back to those capital investors or go back to those banks, then they already know you, right? They've already talked to you. You already have some kind of a relationship.
Miss Lisa.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I have a question for you. If you don't, is that okay?
Yeah, do it.
I know that you mentioned, and thank you for explaining what imprints are because I had no clue. I was like, I don't like, is she talking about batches or what? She thought, no, I'm just kidding. But thank you so much. So I think one of the things that when you were starting, that I was trying to wrap my mind around as a serial entrepreneur is like, when do you know it's time to add a new imprint, right? Like, for whoever that is, for whatever that may mean for my line of business. But like, how do you know when you've squeezed all the juice out of this orange? And like, are there any other things that you're seeing that you saw, or maybe that you have kind of identified that like are factors that would say, okay, it's time to add another imprint, or strategic kind of thought processes around it? For adding that new, because a lot of people are talking about like diversifying and adding a new, revenue stream potentially. Is there something that I should be thinking about, or maybe some questions or something that I should be wrapping my mind around before adding to ensure that like I'm getting and maximizing what I currently have here? Does that make sense?
It totally does. So let me give some examples that for some recent changes that we did. Then honestly, I anticipate our growth is going to probably explode even more in the next like 6 to 12 months. So I was actually first approached to mentor another entrepreneur. He runs a publishing house called Monstrous Books, and he does everything through Kickstarter right now, which means he doesn't have a distributor. Only people who order the books through the Kickstarter can get the books, right? And I knew he had already won a couple of awards that in the genres he writes in and that his people write in. It's like if you're familiar with horror, a Stoker Award is considered tremendous in among North American horror writers. He's been nominated for several others as well. And so I knew the quality was high, and I knew that classically, like when he does a Kickstarter and he asks for $50,000, it'll usually go up to around 150,000. So he definitely has demand, right? Because he's tripling what his original ask is. So he had been trying to find a distributor forever. And a mutual friend reached out to me and said, can you mentor him on like, because when you look for a distributor, like a more standard distributor versus like selling direct to market, you actually have to pull together a proposal. Typically the proposal, it's going to be your mission, vision, strategy, your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, who your intended market is. I mean, and then actually your past financials, right? So I did connect him with my distributor, and I did coach him on what to do. And what was weird was they didn't say no, but they didn't say yes either. They just didn't reply. So I actually hooked him up with my account executive at IPG, and they then turned around and said, she was like, well, I'll follow up on it. And again, he didn't really hear anything. So I'm like, okay, I know just based on everything I knew from his past history that there is, and the demand, one of the biggest sellers in North America is actually horror, right? So if he is getting those numbers without a standard distributor, so that means it's not hitting retailers, it's not going to libraries, it's not available in schools, it's not available in bulk, right? That it is only available through his Kickstarter. If he's getting those kinds of numbers, holy crap. Like think about the potential if he actually had access to a standard distributor. So I pitched to him, you become an imprint under Running Wild. That means by default, you have access to all of my marketing, all of my publicity, all of my distribution channels, right? And if you choose, you can also access my manufacturing channels. And I will stay out of your creative because you already know the product you're doing, right? You've got that nailed. So we negotiated, long story short, obviously he agreed, right? Because now Monstrous Books is one of our imprints. And when I informed my distributor that this went down, they were beyond excited. I mean, they were thrilled. And it turned out what was happening was his what his product was classically was either like a horror comic or a novel that had heavy graphics, but it wasn't a graphic novel. And I had talked him into changing his model so that he did graphic novels, not comics, and novels. And so when they saw that change, then they had the buy-in and they knew exactly who they could sell it to. So it's looking at what do you have that works already within your wheelhouse, and then how can that be leveraged in smart ways? Does that make sense?
100%. I think there is when I was going through this accelerator program for e-commerce businesses, one of the things that they would tell us is you need to have a home run concept. And if you don't have a home run you have to try a lot to find your home run concept. and then you double down, triple down, quadruple down. So what you're saying is he found his home run concept and just needed to do a little tweak in order to then take it to the next level. And I think that's good because it's a reminder. I think oftentimes, you know, we hold on as entrepreneurs to like certain concepts that are not home run concepts, or like,
Mhm.
I do a strawberry banana smoothie, and it's like, yeah, nobody's buying your strawberry banana smoothie. Everybody tells you they want the smoothie without the banana, but you refuse to do because your grandma told you the strawberry banana was going to be the best. And it's like, yeah, but the market and your customers are telling you they want the strawberry, right? So
Right.
that's just a great reminder. I appreciate that. Thank you. If I have any more, I'll come off mute. There's a few entrepreneurs that I know that are in here that they talk to me outside of this. So I'm trying to think about their business and maybe where they are as for some of their unique challenges too. But this has been really good. Thank you so much.
No, that's perfect. Honestly, and everybody, you're welcome again in the chat or just go off mute. I'm easily interruptible, so it's all good. So,
I just
actually,
really needed,
yeah, go ahead.
I,
Sorry.
I really needed help with my operational chart.
Mm,
Since I'm going to use a manufacturer to make my chocolates,
okay.
I don't know how to set up the operational chart because most of the work will be done by the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be making the chocolate, packaging, and shipping it for me. So what can go into my organizational chart to set up my business on my side?
Honestly, one of my defaults is reach out to people who've already been successful in the space that you have and ask them what they started with.
Mm, okay.
Because, you know, it's going to be different for everybody depending on their business. Like, so I fully, Keisha, to your point, like I don't manufacture my own stuff, right? I use a third party. But I knew that to support that, I needed to understand, you know, financially what needed to go into it. I needed to understand like the marketing and publicity side. I needed somebody to help me from an operations perspective, like those goofy day-to-day things that happen that you just can't anticipate. I knew I needed someone to oversee things like, so we actually get the rights to all of our IP. So titles or stories are actually considered intellectual property. We get the rights to then not only do it in ebook and paperback, which is what we started with, but also audiobook, and then to pitch it for like TV, film, and so on. So back to the whole like getting the right people in the room thing, you know, part of me from an operations perspective was identifying what roles I needed to support the product that we were going to put to market, right? And then finding those people who are either already experienced in it to give me guidance, or identifying people that I could bring on board who could, you know, either perform the work or minimally provide support in some capacity for the work to be done. Does that make
Okay, thank
sense?
you. Yes, it does. Thank you.
And kind of going back to, I think, Juan, the second half of your question. So back to the whole, like, you know, you're looking for that home run, but it's also like looking at those things that you're already successful in, but you don't realize it. So like the smoothie example that you provided, right? For me, I've got all this IP, right? I have all this intellectual property. We probably have the rights to like 350 different titles, right? So, you know, we're selling ebooks, we're selling paperbacks, but how else can we then leverage those stories to make them available to where, you know, fans might be? And that's when it was like, wait a minute, why aren't we just doing our own audiobooks? Because it takes a long time to pitch audiobooks to audiobook companies. I mean, it's a full-time job, right? And believe me, I was doing it for a while and I was tired a lot. And that's why I said, no, no, no. You know what? There are these platforms available now, like ACX. Why aren't I just using that platform to find the talent and then working with the talent to get that out to market? And I want to say we actually, on a regular basis, make more money now from the audiobooks than we do from the ebook and from the paperback. So a lot of it is just going back and saying, well, I know how to make a smoothie. but strawberry and banana smoothies aren't selling right now. But hey, blueberry smoothies, those are working. So why don't I try that instead?
And which is crazy because what you're ultimately saying is understanding your customer in such a way that you understand their pain points, and sometimes creating a vertical, right? Like other products that are really vertically aligned with your original product. What you may find, because we've seen that in other industries where I know a young lady who she does, she has a product that supports expecting parents, and people can support financially to, like, you create a page, you tell them when the baby's going to be due, all your family members get all the updates. They can like put money towards if they think it's going to be a boy or be a girl or whatever the case may be. It allows you to, it replaces kind of the traditional registry. That's her main product. But she has all of these other things, like she does a gender reveal game where it's like, put your information in here and we'll be able with 90% accuracy tell you're going to have a boy or girl. So she uses that as her top of funnel because she gets thousands upon thousands of emails per day there. She puts them into her funnel. She provides a lot of content and information through the email. And now she offers affiliate marketing like products, which like feed right into, right? So it's like, oh shoot, like I understand that my audience has this problem. We sell them smoothies, but a person who's buying smoothies also cares about overall health and wellness and fitness and trying to live a better life, right? So maybe it's not just smoothies. Maybe now we're going to also, to accompany the smoothies, right? We're going to also provide them some other stuff. We've seen this with other places, right? McDonald's now is in the coffee game. It's like, wait,
Right.
It used to be chicken nuggets and apple pies. Now they're trying to compete with Starbucks with coffee and frappes and things of that nature. So I love it, Miss Lisa. I think you're killing it.